towards DC. I also, another one of my hats, I sit on the Juvenile Justice Advisory Committee for the executive branch of the mayor's office. And one thing that people don't realize, because we are not a state, we actually pay into the federal bureau of prisons. But CSOSA is supposed to actually help bridge and help create an opportunity for people to come home and return back into the community and be reunited. They don't put any money or programs into that because we're not a state. So one of the biggest problems is that what Tiffany is saying is, like, when we are fighting for affordable housing, we actually need to be fighting for the people that are returning. In DC, we fought so it's not just formerly incarcerated, or I forgot what they call people that have been locked up. I'm so used to say returning citizens.
Yes.
So yes, in DC we call them returning citizens, but that's not what they're recognized as, especially when it's time to apply for a job. But if you don't, and we look at the unemployment numbers in DC, we won Ban the Box last year. But if you look at the unemployment numbers in Ward 7 and Ward 8, I think, like this gentleman said, has the highest unemployment rate in the country in Ward 7 and Ward 8. And one of the bigger problems is that we have all this development that people that have been formerly incarcerated can't work on those job sites. So there are all opportunities to push back against legislation, to push back against development. And I'll put a plug in, if you are a member of DC and there's development happening in your neighborhood, you do have an advisory neighborhood commission. And any development that happens in the city, especially if there's federal funds tied to it, the community has an opportunity to weigh in and say how they want those funds spent. So by going to these meetings, it's actually the first level, you saying that I want to make sure that if there's work happening in this neighborhood, that we're hiring people that have been formerly incarcerated, that we're creating affordable housing. So there are many of ways that people can get involved here in DC. I always say, I think someone said that DC, people think about DC, they think about the Capitol, they think about the museums, but I think, like this sister said right here, there are actually people like us that are trying to live in this community, raise our kids in this community, and we're not looked at because people are tourists and they're thinking about everywhere outside of DC. But DC has a real problem that's not being addressed because we're not a state. So with that being said, I think we've definitely talked enough. I know I ran my mouth enough. I would love to take questions from the audience.
We're gonna start with a question from Twitter, then we can move on to the audience.
Oh, yes, because you all been tweeting, right?
So this is, I think, actually directed at Rama. So do you know if Black Lives Matter is caught on in Israel? As you probably know, several others here know, there are many Eritrean who made their way to Israel, and it's caused some issues. And a couple of weeks ago, there was a young Eritrean man who was actually shot by a security guard because he was a suspected terrorist. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, so there's two different issues around Black Lives Matter within Israel. There's the issue of the asylum seekers, mostly from Eritrea or Sudan, and then there's a separate issue of Ethiopian Jews within Israel. So I can quickly discuss both. With the asylum seekers, it's estimated there's about 45,000 to 60,000 asylum seekers who are in Israel currently. They've been there for a few years. Israel, in response to all the asylum seekers that were escaping through Egypt, built this very big fence with the, on the border, like electrocuted and everything. So they've kind of shut down the flow of asylum seekers to their country, but they still have these very large number within their country, and it's a lot of racism against these asylum seekers, let's just say. So as was just mentioned, an asylum seeker was mistaken as a Palestinian recently, was shot by a police officer because they suspected him of being a terrorist. If you ever followed the news in the past few weeks, Israel is pretty much extrajudicially killing Palestinians on a daily basis. Palestinians who are protesting again for their basic rights for freedom and justice and equality. And so this one Ethiopian man was shot by the guard, and then a bunch of Israelis, he was bleeding on the ground. A bunch of Israelis got together and pretty much beat him to death afterward, because again, they suspected him of being a terrorist. And this is part of the language what the Israeli government has been talking about these asylum seekers, calling them infiltrators, refusing to process their asylum, so they've rejected or ignored their applications for asylum. So they've, out of these 45,000 asylum seekers, Israel has only provided asylum for 4 Eritreans, I believe, and 2 Sudanese. And if you're going to compare that, for example, in the EU, Eritrean asylum seekers are usually accepted at a rate of 84%. So Israel, being obsessed with being a Jewish state and protecting its demographics, we hear that language a lot with Palestinians, the demographic threat of Palestinians, especially Palestinian citizens of Israel, that they can't go more than 20% of the population or else it gets too much, and that will change the demographics. We have to make sure we maintain a Jewish state. So they don't give them asylum. And also, Israel currently, it had a law from the 50s that was a prevention of infiltration law that it had used to prevent Palestinians from returning home after Israel ethnically cleansed, about 750,000 Palestinians in 1948 when the state of Israel was established, ethnically cleansed all these Palestinians from their homes, drove them off their homeland, and then passed this law to say you cannot come back. And now it's tweaked that law to also include asylum seekers. And so what now happens is Israel goes around and rounds up anyone they think is asylum seeker, has no papers, and sends them back to open air prisons, pretty much, camps on the Egyptian border, and puts them there in the desert, and just away from the city centers, so they can't get any jobs. They can leave if they want the center, but it's like they have to check in and out, but there's no work. And it's meant to make life so impossible that they just decide, you know what, we're gonna go back. And Israel tries to repatriate them back. Now, according to international law, they can't be repatriated back to Eritrea or Sudan because they face persecution, they face their fears of war, but they try to make deals with other countries in Africa to send them. But most people don't want that. They're trying to escape all that war. So instead now, they put them in the detention centers in the prison. And so there's been massive protest by these asylum seekers demanding that you have, it's your duty under international laws to process our asylum applications. And they've been attacked by the police, and the Israeli government officials have all time. So in 2012, a member of the parliament, who's also a member of the Likud, which is the ruling party, said the Sudanese are a cancer in our body. And she apologized later, not to Sudanese, she apologized to cancer patients for comparing them to Africans. Yeah. Netanyahu, the current prime minister of Israel last year, was saying Israel is prepared to stop as much as possible the entry of Ebola patients into our borders as part of our general efforts to defend our borders from illegal infiltrators and terror. So again, that language of infiltration. So it's all about the Jewish identity. But it's not only all about the Jewish identity, because earlier this year we saw also Ethiopian Jews. Caught on video was an Ethiopian Israeli Jew soldier was being beaten by Israeli Jewish police officers who were white. And that sparked a whole slew of also Black Lives Matter. It was around the time of Baltimore and the protest against the killing of Freddie Gray. And so Israeli Ethiopian Jews were up to like, well, we are, we're Jewish, what are about our lives, Black Lives Matter here. And if you look at Ethiopian Jews make about 2% of the population in Israel, but they're like 30% of those in jail, 65% of Ethiopian children live under the poverty line. So these are Ethiopian Jews who have attempted to buy into the Zionist idea of a Jewish state. Like, we are Jews, they serve in the army. So there's a lot of tension between Palestinian citizens of Israel as well as Palestinians in the West Bank and occupied East Jerusalem, because Ethiopian Jews tend to be the ones at the front lines who are enforcing the occupation. We know in human nature, you tend to look at who's lower than you in the food chain, so you can be like, I'm better, I'm proving. So Ethiopian Jews, being that they're the black Jews, trying to prove, no, we're truly Zionists, we're truly married to the Zionist ideal, so they can be very ruthless, at checkpoints with Palestinians, etc. But even then, it's not enough. So it brings into question, as the Zionism and the anti-racism of Zionism, and particularly the anti-blackness that even Ethiopian Jews who are really truly trying to claim their identity as Jews are being denied that.
Before we take one more question, I know that you have to do. Oh, awesome. We get to have you a little longer. Are we going to take another question online? Or okay, so questions from the audience. Thank you.
My name is William Nelson, DEP. Is it still Chocolate City? That's what I just had. What's going on at Yale University? What's the issue there?
Well, I'm no longer a student.
I know you're not.
But, yeah, so I think what's going on at Yale was the same thing that was going on when I was there. I was there from 2006 to 2009. I was a graduate student. I went to Stanford undergrad. Stanford and Yale were completely different.
I'm from California.
Okay, so Stanford and Yale were completely different in terms of race relations on campus. Stanford, you had a black theme house, a black community center, a black dorm. We had a freshman convocation. They gave us copies of the Miseducation of the Negro when we stepped in the door. They instilled a sense of black nationalism from day one. And, you know, when Amadou Diallo was killed, we were protesting on campus. So I always joked that it was like going to a HBCU for me, you know, that my whole reality at Stanford was black. Yale was the exact opposite. There was no sense of kind of black solidarity, and even though there's a black solidarity conference there was no sense of that. And part of it is, I thought, one, a lot of the students didn't know the history. If you look at private white institutions and the relationships with African American students, there's often a moment during the Black Power movement where they had somewhat of a revolution like we're having now, where students, you know, rise up on campus and say that we want to see the fruits of the national civil rights movement. So at Stanford, you had the Take Back the Mic movement, where they literally took the mic from the vice provost and had a list of demands. We want a black theme house, and they got those. We want black faculty, they got those. Yale had the same exact thing. It was a moment in which a group of black male students at Yale came together, had a list of demands. So you can go to the 70s and see kind of these black power moments. The thing that happened at Yale, I think, is that students wanted so much to be a part of the Yale community in terms of the secret societies like the Skulls and Bones. That's a deep passion that a lot of black students have when they get to a school like Yale. So they forget that there's this larger struggle, and they don't necessarily fight for it. And what happens is they're reminded in very painful ways. When a white fraternity might tell them only white girls are allowed at our parties, which happened, which was what kind of caused this huge eruption lately. There was a Halloween party at a fraternity house, I think, and it was said that only white girls were allowed. The administration, faculty members, basically sent out an email saying we shouldn't be so sensitive. You know, it was basically saying that the students were being too sensitive to these racial requests and comments. And part of it is these messages come from a person who's called the master of the house. That Yale has these colleges, and every college has a master. Princeton used to have a master, but they changed that to a head of college. Part of it is that sensitivity to the history of African American oppression. So now Yale has this huge battle on its hands because they put a African American dean in place, Jonathan Holloway. He was there when I was there, but what's interesting is people felt that he's been absolutely silent. So the point is, what is the role of a black face if they're not speaking for us, right? And I think Yale understands that it has a critical fight on its hands. So most recently, it's committed $50 million to recruiting more black faculty and addressing issues in race and diversity. But what's amazing about what they've done is that they've issued this list of demands that are no joke. I think it's also important to paint this picture of Yale, like Columbia in Harlem, like Stanford and East Palo Alto. All of these institutions have very interesting relationships with the neighboring communities. These are often predominantly black, poor communities where these schools will buy up all the property and gentrify that area. And the people in those communities do not benefit. I mean, East Palo Alto does not look the way that it looked when I went to Stanford. New Haven is crime-ridden, and there's this like invisible border of where Yale students go and where the New Haven residents go. And then Columbia has bought up pretty much all of Harlem, right? So there's a larger issue of what's happening between the faculty, administration, and the students, but also what's happening between the university and the immediate community.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Rick Brown. I want to pose this question because I actually heard a co-worker of mine pose the question, when he found out we were having this meeting today. He's not here, unfortunately, but the question, well, it wasn't a question, it was a phrase. He said he believed that all lives matter. So my question to you, and I believe in the Black Lives Matter movement. My question is, how do you respond to someone, they're trying to say, okay, well, all lives matter, but how do we respond to people that would try to say that, that all lives matter? Well, we know all lives matter, but you understand my question, right? Right. How do you respond to that?
Are you asking me?
Anybody.
I'm gonna let somebody politically correct answer that question. Anybody want to take that? I'll let you take it. You like you should.
Some questions you gotta answer with a question. So when somebody asks me, if somebody asks you, well, don't all our lives matter? The question is, why are you trying to silence Black Lives Matter? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, I mean, if that was true, why aren't you on the street saying all lives matter before anybody said Black Lives Matter? But the minute someone says Black Lives Matter, now you need to talk about every single life that you've ever seen, right, be heard. So, I mean, the question is like disingenuous. It's based in so much anti-Blackness that it's even hard to think about. So sometimes you gotta ask yourself, do I really wanna debate somebody who's having this sort of irrational response to people saying Black Lives Matter? I mean, somebody has pointed out, like, no one goes to funerals and says, well, I've had loss as well. So, I mean, because, I mean, it's true you've had loss, but we're at this funeral right now. So, all right, or, if there's a cancer convention, no one says, well, all diseases matter, right? Well, that's true, but why are you bringing that up right now? Clearly, you're trying to silence that conversation. So when if you say Black Lives Matter, somebody jumps up and immediately says all lives matter, they're clearly trying to silence you, so then you gotta ask them, why are you interested in silencing the conversation about Black lives? Because that's really, it's not about you trying to figure out, it's they have to figure something out, it's really about them. That's what you gotta find a way to break down.
I think you did a good job of answering the question. I'll tell you how I would answer the dog side. Because I'm on Southeast. Right. Yes, sir.
Hi there. So I just want to say to Andy that I think it's really important that labor starts to talk about some of the structural problems that we have as it relates to to our contracts, to our organizing, and I think that the two-tier contract is an example of something that on its face seems very neutral, but then when you look at its impact on on our membership and who is in a tier 1 scale and who is in a tier 2 scale, it's you can see the impact on on Black and brown workers. And my question is, we in the labor movement always talk about how the 50s were the high watermark for labor. And it certainly was, right? I mean, 35% of the US industrial workforce was unionized in the 1950s. And yet we forget about the fact that the National Labor Relations Act excluded domestic and agricultural workers. And we all know who worked domestic jobs and agricultural jobs and who worked industrial jobs in the 50s. And so, my question is, and it's something that I've been struggling with in my work, is that how do we talk about the importance of rebuilding the labor movement without falling back into this, this myopia of saying the 50s were great, but it was great for white male workers. So if you answer that question for me.
I just want to say he's with us.
Yeah, that's my husband.
And
I mean,
I don't know how anybody would ask someone to join the labor movement, period, by referring to the 50s. There's very few of us that were even around. So, but I think, I mean, you're an organizer, I'm an organizer. You have to talk about what's up front, not from us, but what's up front from the people who want to be organized, right? And I think just my experience with the Black Lives Matter movement, like, really has helped awaken me to seeing that there's a lot more issues that we need to address in the labor movement that deal with the lives of our own members when they're not at work, and the lives of black workers, whether they're in unions or not, at work. Right? So that's sort of like a big discussion that we're going through right now.
Thank you. I think we have. Yeah, then just holler it out. Just holler it out. We can hear.
Yeah.
All right, yeah.
I wanted to know if there's a component of the Black Lives Matter program or movement movement that has the educational theme for folks to start getting involved in the political machine and electing and participating in elections, electing the right people and all these people that look like us, etc. Is there a theme in there for that in the movement?
I think it's a lot of things going on. One is probably a refusal on the part. Okay, so I do think it's important to say, I don't want to assume what people know. So when we say Black Lives Matter, there's different components to that. So there is one, a hashtag, okay? And the hashtag is used globally by people who have no sense of what might be happening in America, but now it's a global trend. So there's the trend, it's a hashtag, it's all over the world, right? There's an organization that evolved out of 3 women who started the hashtag, Opal, Alicia, and Patrice. There's that, right? They have chapters. Those chapters are all over the country now. I believe over 22, 26 chapters. You also have this intangible amorphous movement that consists of hundreds of organizations and thousands of individuals that encompasses everything related to liberation, be it environmental, be it ban the box, be it whatever, right? And so knowing the difference between all those things, right? Because it can get very confusing. When there's a Black Lives Matter democratic debate, is that those 3 individuals who are heads of an organization? Is that representative of this wider movement that can encompass Ferguson and Baltimore? So there's just, it's complicated, and the media wants to make it simple.
Right.
They don't want to tell us the nuances. So I know because I'm in media. My most recent article for the Washington Post, I literally had to constantly be in tension with the editors about not simplifying it to the point that you're inaccurate. So when we talk about the role of Black Lives Matter in politics, there could be 1,000,001 responses to that.
That's right.
Because we're all Black Lives Matter, and you all too, if you're involved in justice work in any degree, right? So, for example, I know that out of Ferguson, there is this desire to literally put freedom on the ballot, the word freedom, and say that ultimately this system is flawed, is broken. That's not where the answer is. We want freedom, and we will define freedom on our own terms. So there's that. There are people who call for a third-party system, that Democratic-Republican dichotomy is not serving us. We need to consider a new party. Maybe we need to create that party, right? And then there are those that say, well, we need to exercise the power of the vote. That if we have to choose between the lesser of 2 evils, we'd rather so-and-so in there versus so-and-so, right? And so it's not one answer. I do think, I think the number one thing is to ensure that there's a clear policy from especially the Democratic candidates. So if we're talking about Bernie Sanders and Hillary Clinton, for example, are they committed to a policy, a racial justice policy that will take in effect the first 100 days, right? From what I've understood, Hillary Clinton has not presented that policy. From what I know, Bernie Sanders has been a lot more thoughtful in his racial justice policy. But yet, the movement of Black Lives Matter has not endorsed a candidate. right? So it's, and that gets tricky. Part of it is because no matter who goes into that office, we know that we're not gonna see the transformation we see.
Right.
I have, sorry, another question from Twitter. I think this goes to Yuri. What do you do if you find yourself in a hostile or potentially hostile situation with law enforcement?
This is a debate that I usually have with a lot of colleagues, because I have colleagues who say that people should assert their rights and they have the right to say what they want to say to the police officers. I am of the opinion that there are lawyers for a reason. I'm of the opinion that you should go home alive, and let us sort it out. I tell my clients when they get pulled over or have an encounter with a police officer, you have the right to record. Nowadays, we're able to see what's really happening out there because people are breaking out their iPhones and recording these situations, so you absolutely have the right to do that. It's honestly just doing exactly what the officer says, and I think that rubs people the wrong way because it seems as though I'm saying you just need to lay over and just kind of let them tell you what to do, but no, that's essentially what it is. If you feel an officer is a racist officer, you're not getting out of that ticket. You're not going to get out of being arrested. You're not going to work it out right then and there. So do what they say, have it recorded, make sure you write everything down that same night or day, and let the court system actually work it out. And it's hard to say that to people who don't trust the court system. But you're not going to be able to do anything on your own that very day because we're seeing examples of people dying because they're either running away, they're resisting in some way. Do what they say, know what your rights are, make them verbally known because there are devices that record nowadays, so you want to be able to orally say what you're actually thinking and what your intentions are. Go home and let the court system work itself out.
Yes. I just want to add really quickly, no, I'm not going to ask a question. If you see someone if you're walking down the street and you see someone that is being harassed by a police officer and you do not have a criminal record and you are a citizen, you also have every right to ask what happens, and it makes a huge difference. I saw one young man being held down on 14th and Euclid Street by seven police cars, one young man being held down. Now, these police don't come when the frat boys are partying all night long, and I called and I was trying to put my kids to sleep. But they found this one young man, so I went over and I asked what happened, and they explained to me he was running down the street and they had a call for a black man running. As I was sitting there talking to the police, a black man was running down the street in his jogging suit. I said, well, you need to stop him. And I stayed there, and I called and I had the sergeant come on the scene. And I filed a report. So one thing that we can do, everyday things that we can do, when we see something like that, is either record with our camera, our phone, or ask questions.
A lot of times the complaints that people have about police officers treating people aggressively fall on deaf ears. They go home, they complain to their family members or friends, but they don't do anything about it. Go and file a complaint. Right, because at some point, if that officer did something to you that was inappropriate, best believe he probably did it to a few other people, and you want that paper trail to accumulate. So don't go and complain to your friends and do nothing about it.
Thank you. There was a question in the back. Do you want the microphone, Keith?
No.
Okay.
A comment and question. The gentleman in the front that asked about the labor movement, I'm particularly concerned about that. I think that if you're thinking about what it takes for a union to be inclusive, right, you have to be very intentional about that. So if your executive board is over 90% white, and you have a membership that's extremely diverse, that's white supremacy.
Yep.
That's right.
Yes, say that.
But in addition to that, I wanted to ask about police shootings, because every time something happens, a police officer murders somebody, then the officer gets like a week off, paid leave, whatever. Their name isn't released. There's all this like non-transparency around whatever act they committed. And there was another guy, Jamal Clark, I think that was in Minneapolis this week. So I'm wondering how we can, even though I'm pro-union, I'm concerned with the fact that those unions are protecting these officers that are murdering people. So how can we bring them that power and that transparency to those organizations? Strategy around that.
Yeah.
Who got that answer?
I don't even know if the police union is pro-union, but.
We are the police union.
Oh.
My mother's a retired so-called jump out, and she's now working for the other side, so I can say that.
I'll say, oh, go ahead.
Does
No,
anybody
you
want
can
to
go first and I'll go after you.
No, mine's a little more personal, so you go
Oh,
first.
or we'll maybe open up
Somebody
personally.
go.
So I just think that,
I do see the problematic nature of it as, I have my stop police terror hat right now and not my USCW hat for the record, that it is problematic, and I think that police are allowed to use their union membership and their badge as a shield to murder with impunity, period. And there's like saying that when cops go off the reservation and do these things, that the first call they make is the union and the second is their wife. So I don't believe that that's actually not true, because we found that to be true with Darren Wilson and also with the gentleman who killed Walter Scott in Charleston, right? And so that is something that I feel like it's the height of the grappling and the work that unions have to do in this work for Black lives and this movement for Black lives, because we can't, Rich Trumka tried to give this really, to his credit, right? He really tried to wade into that water when he went to Ferguson, and he said, my brother killed my sister's son because Darren Wilson was a union member and Leslie McSpadden, Michael's mother, was a member of UFCW. So I mean, like, this uncomfortability that we feel and this tension that we feel is really, 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 I think it's something that every time these crimes happen, it's going to keep coming up, and we have to come up with a solution for it. But I personally I think that the police should be in the FOP. That's me.
I think that we have to get ready to wrap up, so we're going to have your quick
I was
comment.
going to respond to
Okay.
that. Okay. So the struggle around addressing police unions and breaking up that power is a complicated one. And so in this movement for Black Lives that's focused on police brutality, there's a lot of policy recommendations that are coming out. People are talking about what to do with unions, or maybe we should use body cameras, and so there's a lot of different things that are happening. What we at Baji have been leading on is a campaign called Safety Beyond Policing. And because what we realized is that the different manifestations of policing is still going to be anti-Black.
Yep.
It's still going to be predicated on managing anxiety about the movement of Black bodies in different places, and with particular implications for Black immigrants, because any contact with the criminal justice system is liability for deportation and detention, right? And as I mentioned earlier, the police are also immigration enforcement agents as well. They're deputized, right? So what we were saying is that what we have to do is we got to find a way to divest from policing and shrink the footprint of policing in our lives altogether and invest in our community. So what does that mean? In New York City, our campaign Safety Beyond Policing, we were looking to bring, well, now it came out to about $230 million of funding into our community to guarantee full employment for every young person in New York City, while resisting the attempt to add 1,300 new police officers to the NYPD, which is the largest police force in the country, right? So, because our analysis is that we can fight the union, we can do these different things, but will that stop them from killing our children? So, because that question can't be answered by those policy recommendations, we're saying that we need to take money from this. Policing is not giving us safety. What defines safety is a community organized to address violence as it happens, right? So we demand that funding. So in New York, not only was it $230 million to add more police officers, they added another $200 million to put police officers into schools. So about $400 million is scheduled to go to NYPD in this last year and a half, right? While we, record unemployment and all these things that are going on in New York City. So what we began to think about is that, one, not only do we need to divest from things that are violent to us and invest in things that we do want, we also have to look at ways that we organize our community to address violence that is happening in our community. So that, because people call the police for a reason, right? And policing often plays on our fears. So when people call the police because there's a domestic violence dispute or there's gang violence, we can be organized to address these issues as a community to intervene and create safety for ourselves. And that's one of the things that we were urging people to do when we were working on it.
Thank you.
For the sake of time, and I know we've had such a fruitful conversation, and I hope that it will continue on social media or with some of the folks that are up here, but we want to respect this beautiful place and the people that have been working here all day. So I'm going to ask that we do quick wrap-ups with the closing remark. I'm going to start with our right, since we've been...
I gotta go.
You got a choice.
So my Twitter handle is my first name, Rahiel, and then T for my last name, and Urban Cusp. Urban Cusp is really how I keep people informed about a host of issues, including what's going on in Israel and including what's going on in Ferguson and Baltimore, that if you really just want to kind of be in the know how you can get plugged in, I really try my best to use my platform as the medium to keep you plugged in and tell you what CNN and MSNBC are not going to tell you. I really kind of just want to applaud you all because it was rainy today, it was cold, it was ugly, and it was dreary, and you all saw fit to be here. Yeah. So I feel like I already know everything I need to know about everyone in this room. The commitment that you made to being in this space is important, and I think if you just keep showing up the way that you did tonight, we are going to move closer to the world that we live in. I just want to thank EBN because I've kind of watched you all evolve. You were founded the same year Urban Cusp was founded, so I remember you being a baby, and now, to see this, it makes me really proud. I'm proud of you all. You all are doing amazing work, and I just love the fact that you put a global perspective on this issue. Yeah. Thank you very much.
I guess for me, I totally co-sign what Rahel said. It's about being engaged, being informed. For me, what's most important is the youth. I love working with the youth. I love being able to educate them and trying to prevent them from going into the adult system because it's just a cycle. Inherently I'm seeing things that are just daunting in the criminal justice system that there needs to be reform quick and fast. It's hard for people who have been convicted, who are labeled felons at that point. They're second-class citizens, essentially no housing, no governmental assistance, can't find employment, and it's just a reason for them to just reoffend and get back into the system, and that affects families and that affects kids, and then they too follow that same cycle, and so it's important that we are there for them. And of course, being here and being engaged and understanding how to be able to help in your communities. I think the whole Black Lives Matter, you're not the only ones that are confused as far as like where is the local chapters, what are they doing, but there are people working day in, day out, and it's just about being plugged in. But luckily for me, I'm not that kind of a person that goes and protests. What I do every day as a criminal defense attorney is engaging in the movement in and of itself. I am, contesting officers who made illegal stops and who were trying to use evidence that was taken illegally, and I am filing motions for suppressions and being that defense attorney and representing people to the best of my ability, because understand that people of color are indigent and they get court-appointed attorneys, ones that they only talk to for about 5 minutes before making a decision that affects their entire life. So these things happen day in, day out. So I guess that's my advice on that.
Thank you.
I just wanted to say thank you so much, Naomi. Thank you so much, Fanat. I did so good the first time. But really, ladies, thank you so much. And I'm just going to say I'm local. My Twitter handle is Miss Flowers Tweets, MS Flowers Tweets. But I'll stick around for a bit if people are interested in more information about how to get plugged in or want to ask questions. And it's an honor to be here. Thank you so much.
Thanks. It's an honor for the Teamsters to host your event here. Two things that would be important for me would be if anybody has any ideas that they want to share with us, with our organization, and how we can address Black Lives Matters issues in reality into the workplace, that would be really important, because we're really serious about that. And our feeble efforts up for the last 5 months have really enlightened us and really produced a lot of results for some people. Not as good as we want it to be, but it can be a lot better, and we need some help in that. And likewise, we have, in the process, we've touched, I think, a lot of people in our organization that if there's, like, especially here in DC, if there's support that's needed in the community, come to us, and we'll try to mobilize what we can to promote that.
Thank you all for coming and for giving us this space and this moment to share with each other, to build with each other. I also will be here to connect with you all. There's so many things that our community is facing. Our global community, there's a number of crises that we've come to our office that we're always hearing. There's, obviously there's the African migrants crisis in the Mediterranean right now, where 800 African migrants drown every week in the Mediterranean. That isn't a global refugee crisis that people speak about. There's Central American Afro-Indigenous people who are in crisis coming to this country as they move up through Central America. There's also Dominicans of Haitian descent who are being pushed out of their country. So in so many ways, Black communities are in crisis across the world in a multitude of ways that we have to address. But also the beauty of this moment that we're in is that we can have these global conversations in this room immediately in ways that are different than the past. And right now, as we meditate on what Black liberation can be and what abolition can be, as we fight for what we don't want, removing what we don't want and creating what doesn't exist yet, safe and healthy and powerful communities that are moving towards their destinies. There's any number of ways that y'all can do that work in your local spaces, but we also offer, we helm the Black Immigration Network, which is a collection of about 50 organizations around the country that work with Black immigrants. So if you want to organize and work as a Black immigrant, please reach out to me. I'll connect with you. Let's build. We have members here in DC and the DMV. We're very strong here, but we're always looking for more, particularly East African immigrants in particular. So please connect with me and let's build.
Thank you everyone for coming out. Really honored to be in this space and to be able to talk about Palestine in these spaces. I think it's very important, again, to think about how, what work you can do locally to support a struggle for freedom and justice and equality abroad. In 2005, the Palestinian Civil Society issued a call for boycott, divestment, and sanctions, BDS, against Israel, against companies that are complicit in Israel's oppression, very much mirroring the South African anti-apartheid movement, saying that, you know what, the governments are refusing to take any action to hold Israel accountable. It is up to people of conscience, no matter where they are globally, to take action. So that's thinking about what products you buy, boycotting products like Sabra, almost boycotting products like HP, like SodaStream, because of their complicity, pushing your campuses to divest from these companies, and then finally pushing the U.S. government to end all military aid to Israel. So I urge everyone who's interested more, you can talk to me, you can go to our website, endtheoccupation.org. Thank you so much.
I'm going to make this sweet and short. One, this has been very inspirational for me, and I think in the work that we do, a lot of times we get to see the problems. We don't see the immediate solutions. I would say even being a single mom of 2 kids, every day is a fight. The school patterns are being redrawn where my daughters are being kicked out of the schools here in DC. I do great work all over the world every now and then, but it's hard when you do these great work, you win these things, you can get several people to go out and fight for 15 and have all these protests, but then you go home and you don't know where your kid's gonna be able to go to school next year.
Right.
Or I've struggled to buy a house in the city because I had developers continuously beating me out. In Ward 7, in the hood, where nobody wanted to live. Yeah. So fighting against injustice all the time and feeling demoralized has been very inspirational to be in this room. But I will say, even when it gets hard and I don't feel like fighting, I remember my grandmother said from Tupelo, Mississippi, anytime I have to make any hard decision, you're either part of the problem or you're part of the solution. That's right. So.
Thank you.